down and doing all those things and that great dance that Groucho did. And those guys were in their 40s by this time.
Bill, would you know where this happened? Groucho told me once about, it was late in our movie career, and he said something like, I was hanging upside down by my knees waiting for the shot, and Harpo was about ready to have a bucket of water dumped on his head or something, and they were still not ready, and I said to Harpo, have you had enough? And he said yes, and we both retired. And something like that.
It was in At the Circus, and Irving Thalberg had died, and they were still required to finish out their contract at MGM, and he was in this At the Circus movie with Eve Arden. And Eve Arden was a gal in the circus that walked on the ceiling.
Favorite line.
Go ahead. Can
I do it? Yeah. Oh, that's so generous of you. He comes in and Eve Arden is walking on the ceiling. And he starts to say something to her and she says, come on up here. He's a lawyer. Oh, don't let me blow the line now. Yeah.
You guys aren't going anywhere, are you?
Could we get the movie and perhaps... anyway, the word flies is in it, and the punchline is I don't do something with the flies don't practice law and I don't walk on the ceiling. That's even out of context, it's funny. How could I blow that? Let me make up for it about a party Groucho left with a snotty. He took me to movies and plays and things, and I treasure knowing him more than anything else in my life, other than my beloved parent.
You grew up watching their films, so...
Well, I grew up watching Groucho on the game show.
On TV.
And I'm not that old. My dad's generation saw the movies first, were killed by them, and then were so happy to see the game show. But we went to places, and we went to a very somber movie out here once, or Hollywood, about concentration camps and all. And, at the end, Groucho said everyone was just down at the end, a Czech film. And he said, you want to stay for the cartoon? But he was leaving a party, he didn't like it, it was in LA, he said, let's get out of here. The host is probably looking like Margaret Dumont. He said, I see you're slipping out, Groucho. And he said, no, I've had a wonderful evening, but this wasn't it.
How did you first meet Groucho, Dick? Was it?
Yeah, I'll try to race through this. I saw George S. Kaufman's obit in the Times and was saddened by it, having loved him on This Is Show Business. I was told by my boss, Jack Parr, to go to the Blue Angel and see a young comic named Woody Allen, who was breaking in there. Is he anything for the show? That Jack said. So I went, saw Woody. Afterwards, we met in the lounge, and he said it was hard doing the show tonight because of Kaufman's death. And we both felt the same about that. And he was Groucho's god, George S. Kaufman. And I said, let's go to his funeral tomorrow. And Woody said, fine. He didn't, but I did. Went to the funeral home. Moss Hart was doing the eulogy. Took it out of his pocket, and as he did, pointing to the coffin, said, I can hear George saying it needs cutting. And I looked across the little room that was an overflow room, and there in the flesh, with nothing between us but air, I looked at the profile of Groucho Marx. And in California, many years before, I'd been in Farmer's Market, and I was 10 years old. I went to one of the stands to buy a chicken leg, and the lady said, hey kid, you should have been here a minute ago. Groucho Marx was right where you are. And I thought, there's no God. That was all the proof I ever needed of that. And I'll never see him, of course. And I looked out over the sea of people. I'd see a man with a duck over his head. And then met him many, many, many years later. But at the funeral, he left, spoke to Abe Burrows and Art Carney, beautiful day, 81st and Madison, walked toward Fifth Avenue, but just before he did, a woman said, I heard a woman's voice say, "Hello, Groucho, I'm Edna Ferber." And I thought, I ain't in Nebraska anymore. Groucho went to the corner, I went up and said hello, and I was very witty in those days, and I said, "I'm a big fan of yours." And he said, "Well, if it gets any hotter, I could use a big fan." And that began our friendship, which luckily lasted for over a decade. And he invited me to lunch, and we had lunch in the plaza, and I thought, they can kill me now.
Well, I'm going to get to your interviews with Groucho in a minute, but I wanted to talk some more about Harpo. Harpo, I love Groucho and I love Chico, and I think they're all equals, but Harpo has always been a special. I've had a soft spot for Harpo.
A lot of people say that.
My 6-month-old daughter is named Harper, after you know who. That's the baby you hear in the background.
Does she play the harp at all?
She will. She's actually the projectionist from today. So, yeah. And I wanted to ask Bill about, because Bill is an accomplished composer and musician, and I wanted to ask you about your Harpo's influence on you, and you also worked with him as an arranger. How did Harpo shape your life as a musician?
Well, though I'm sitting here right now, you're probably looking at perhaps the last vertical vaudevillian you'll ever see in your life. I had the privilege of working with him in the British vaudeville circuit. It was called the British Music Hall. Dad and I did a 3-month tour over there in 1949 when he finished Love Happy. And I was 12 years old at the time, and he showed me what vaudeville was really all about. And it was still active there for another 2 or 3 years after. And he had known all along that I had loved music. And so what he had done is he had made me a part of the act. And I was a part of that act. And I would do a thing where it was his time to play the solo harp. And I would come out on stage and place his harp right in the center stage, right where the pin was supposed to be, and so forth. Now, I was dressed as an angel at that time. And so Dad would come out from the wings and shake my hand. And as he shook my hand, he turned me around. And on the back of my wings, it said, "Eat it, Olivelli's." That was the first laugh, and maybe the last one I'll ever get, but it was worth the price. I guess I'm hawking a little bit here, but I just recently put out my autobiography, Son of Harpo Speaks. His book was Harpo Speaks, and mine is Son of Harpo Speaks. And I just did the audio book, and I found a thing. We used to have a Victrola in the house.
Victrola.
You remember those Victrolas with the needles, and you had to change them, everything? Well, it's a plastic record, and you could make recordings. And it says, "Merry Christmas, 1939." And on it, I transferred it somehow. And it's in my audio book, and it's me singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" when I was 2 years old. So my dad knew that I had talent, and he validated my professionalism by allowing me to become his arranger conductor by the time I was 16 years old. All the stuff that you hear him do on television or on records are my arrangements, including the one that he did on the I Love Lucy show, which you always saw. And guess what the song was? "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Yeah.
Nice.
So he just let me go my own way. I tried different things, but I wound up being a musician and living on the wrong side of the tracks.